I'll start off the obvious question. Michael Penix Jr. is taking over. How has he looked so far? Is he ready for this moment? And how have the players responded to him being QB1?
He's definitely ready from a mental mindset standpoint. I don't think there's any doubt about that. They just love his makeup. They just love his poise. They love how cool and calm he is. I mean, albeit there was a fight last week that he was involved in. The Titans, that was kind of crazy. That was a little bit unexpected to see the quarterback get thrown to the bottom of the pile. But maybe that's a good thing too. He's very competitive. He's ultra competitive, and I don't see any spotlight being too bright for Michael Penix Jr. I think that he's that kind of quarterback. He likes the spotlight. He likes the big moments. I mean, 4th down and 13, the 4th and goal from the 13 against the Commanders on the road, playoffs on the line, and he somehow zips the ball into Kyle Pitts' hands, on a diving catch in the 4th quarter to tie the game up. I mean, that was an incredible throw from a then rookie quarterback. And this guy can make every throw you could possibly imagine. I mean, his arm talent is out of this world. He's got one of the best arms in the NFL, period. Now, the question is going to be, can he master the intermediate and short routes? Because that's going to be what separates him and makes him an elite quarterback, because he can throw the deep ball as well as anybody, and he can zip it into incredibly tight spaces. Like the velocity and his release, absurd, right? Absurd. But he has struggled at times in practice this year with the shorter stuff. And sometimes he's zipping it into these guys that are 7 yards away from him, and they can't hold on to it. They're dropping the ball. That was a struggle in his first 3 games last year too, where guys were dropping his passes. There were 2 drops last year that ended up in interceptions. And I think he threw 3 interceptions, and 2 of them were on drop passes that just ended up in the defender's hands. So it's one of those things where he has to kind of get a better feel for the touch passes, improve his accuracy on the short and the intermediate stuff. But I mean, the guy is going to make big plays down the field on a regular basis. He's gonna miss. He's basically a rookie. He's like a rookie 0.5. He's gonna be inconsistent, but he is going to make big plays. I mean, there was one stat that I saw. I had it in one of my articles recently where only one other quarterback, I think he was tied with Anthony Richardson for the amount of air yards per completion in his 3 games. It was a short sample size, but the dude puts the ball in the air, and you have Drake London out there, so he's probably going to catch it.
I do want to ask you just about the quarterback room just as a whole, because Kirk Cousins is still on this team. He's there with Michael Penix. People around the NFL, other teams are surprised by it. Is it a weird dynamic? Has Kirk just been there doing his job as the backup? What are the plans for him? Is he going to be on this team with a trade? What is the plan of year of Kirk?
It has been incredibly mundane this summer. You would think that there would be some drama. There really hasn't been at all. Kirk Cousins has played really quite well, backing up Penix in practice. He's played great. In fact, I would say maybe even better or as good as he did last year. Raheem Morris said that he feels like Kirk is more mobile now, that he's healthier, and Kirk said that himself, that he feels healthier now than he did at this point last season. But this is a 14-year veteran quarterback who has won a ton of games, who's put up a ton of great stats, who's made a lot of money, and he's not a backup quarterback. He's a better quarterback than I would say. I don't want to say half the league, but a third of the league starters right now, maybe. He's at least as good as those guys. But the situation in Atlanta is different, and he would like to go and start somewhere. The Falcons know that. He's made that very clear. But the question is where? Who has an opening for a starting quarterback? Because he has a no trade clause, and he is not going to go anywhere and be a backup. He's already a backup in Atlanta. He doesn't need to go be a backup somewhere else, right? And his wife's family is from Atlanta, so they're comfortable here. As far as that goes, again, he'd love to be somewhere else to start, but right now that does not seem to be in the cards. The Falcons are going to be keeping a close eye on what happens around the league, of course, at quarterback, as they normally would anyway. And they will certainly listen to offers for Kirk Cousins, but I feel like there's a pretty good chance that Kirk Cousins is with the Falcons through 2025, through the season. I really do believe that. And look, I think that Michael Penix Jr. got hurt quite a bit in college. He had 4 season-ending injuries. And Kirk Cousins is a hell of an insurance policy if something goes wrong with Michael Penix. The question, and I think the biggest issue, Ari, is the Falcons have a really tough beginning schedule. I mean, they have Tampa first, they have Minnesota on the road week 2, and then a little bit later on they have the Bills, they have the Niners, both at home, both in prime time. They have Washington in there. It's a really tough like first 6 games. And the question for me is, if Michael Penix Jr. struggles over those first 6 games and they go 2-4, I mean, the fans are going to come out and be asking for Kirk Cousins. You just know it. That's just the NFL. That's what it is. And you don't really want that on the shoulders of a young quarterback like Michael Penix Jr. You just don't. And that was one of the issues, if not the biggest issue, why you don't want Kirk Cousins on the team, because you don't want that to happen. You don't want the struggles to result in people calling for Penix to be benched. That's not what you want. But that's the situation that they're in. It's a good insurance policy. Things are status quo right now. We'll see what happens. The NFL's a crazy league, as you know. So, things can change in a heartbeat. But that's where it is. It's been pretty boring, honestly, so far. But that's what, for your quarterback room, you want it to be as boring as possible.
That is 100% right. But you did take the words right out of my mouth, because the dynamic of, if he does struggle, now fans are asking for Kirk. Has that been brought up to Raheem? Have you heard anything from the organization just about the potential reality that, hey, we get it, he's a good insurance policy. If he gets injured, it's a perfect backup. But what if he does struggle and they're calling his name and now it's in the quarterback's head? Is that not in the organization's mind?
Oh, it certainly is. I mean, they're not gonna talk about it with us, but they're not. I mean, look, these are football people. They know how these things go. They're not ignorant to that type of deal. But look, the one thing that I'll say about the Falcons and the front office and Terry Fontenot, the GM, is that they don't really care what people think. They don't really care. They don't. They have their, say what you will about the moves that Terry Fontenot has made, and people have said a whole lot about drafting Penix number 8, moving back into the first round to get Pierce. He doesn't care. I mean, they got skewered in the media and by pundits over these moves that they've made, and they double down, and they're doing things their way, and I credit them for that, for sticking to it. They have a vision, and they're committed to the vision no matter what everyone else is saying. There's something to be said for that, right? Right or wrong, there's something to be said for that. So they don't really care about that type of deal. If the Boo Birds come out, for Penix and they want Kirk, they're gonna weather the storm. That's the plan, I imagine. And they feel like Penix has the kind of mindset and mentality, to not really, let those things go to his head. They feel like he's gonna be above that, and it's not gonna phase him. So we'll see what happens.